Sakura, sit. Carefully. This tatami hasn't been touched in years.
Professor, this place is eerie. Beautiful, but eerie. Why are we in an abandoned tea room?
Because today we're talking about forgetting. And I thought, what better place than somewhere the world itself is forgotten?
Forgetting? Like losing your keys?
That too, but also something much bigger. Let me start with a number that should alarm you. In 2022, Japan had 4.43 million people living with dementia. By 2050, that number is projected to hit 5.86 million. By 2060, 6.45 million.
That's a staggering increase.
It is, and globally, dementia affects 57 million people. The economic cost? Over $1.3 trillion. Every year, 10 million new cases emerge. But here's where it gets hopeful, Sakura.
I could use some hope after those numbers.
A groundbreaking study published in The Lancet, one of the world's most prestigious medical journals, analyzed Japanese-specific data for the first time. Researchers from Tokai University and the University of Copenhagen identified 14 risk factors for dementia. And when they calculated what would happen if all those risks were fully addressed, hearing loss, lack of exercise, high cholesterol, depression, smoking, social isolation, they found that roughly 39% of dementia cases could theoretically be prevented.
40%? That's almost half.
Almost half. And the single biggest risk factor? Not what most people guess.
Okay, I'll bite. What is it?
Hearing loss. It accounts for 6.7% of the risk, the highest of all 14 factors, followed by lack of exercise at 6% and high LDL cholesterol at 4.5%.
Hearing loss? Really? I would have guessed something like, I don't know, genetics or diet.
That's exactly the misconception. And in Japan, there's a deep cultural issue here. When people develop age-related hearing loss, fewer than 40% see a doctor. And among those, only about 15% use hearing aids. That's the lowest rate among all major developed countries.
Why so low?
Because in Japanese society, there's a widespread attitude. I'm getting old, so of course my hearing fades. It can't be helped. It's almost seen as natural, inevitable, not worth treating. But if we could change that mindset and get more people using hearing aids, we could prevent a significant chunk of dementia cases.
So, a hearing aid could literally save your memories.
Beautifully put. And here's another piece of good news from Germany. A research team tracked over 3,000 adults for 3.5 years, testing their reading and math skills. They found that people who frequently use their cognitive skills through work, reading, problem solving, keep improving those skills well into their 60s.
Wait, improving? Not just maintaining?
Improving, growing, but only if they keep using them. People who stopped challenging their brains saw declines starting in their mid-30s. The researchers said cognitive maintenance isn't automatic. It depends on whether you actively stimulate your brain.
So, use it or lose it is actually scientifically proven.
Exactly. Now, let me tell you about two fascinating innovations coming out of Japan. The first involves wasabi.
Wasabi? The spicy green paste?
The very same. Researchers from the Autonomous University of Madrid and Kinjirushi, a Japanese wasabi company, discovered that a compound in real wasabi called hexaraphane can reduce abnormal tau protein buildup in the brain. Tau is one of the key culprits in Alzheimer's disease. When it gets overly phosphorylated, it clumps up and destroys neurons.
And wasabi stops that?
Hexaraphane activates an enzyme called PP2A that strips the excess phosphate off tau, essentially cleaning up the brain's garbage. In mouse experiments, 5 weeks of treatment improved memory and motor function. Even blood markers for Alzheimer's improved.
That's incredible. So, eating wasabi might help your brain?
Well, we shouldn't overstate it. This is still early research, and the compound is specific. But imagine if a traditional Japanese ingredient turns out to be part of the solution for one of humanity's greatest health challenges. That's rather poetic.
What's the second innovation?
Virtual nostalgia. Researchers at Tohoku University are digitally recreating old Japanese cityscapes, Yokohama in the 1970s, old Sendai neighborhoods, using Google's mapping tools and AI. Google's philanthropy arm contributed $1 million to the project.
So you could virtually walk through your childhood neighborhood?
Exactly. Studies suggest that nostalgic experiences trigger positive emotions, which may reduce dementia risk. Imagine putting on a headset and walking your old route to school, seeing the shops that used to be there, the colors of the buildings. The team plans to have a prototype by 2027 and commercialize the service by late 2028.
That's beautiful, Professor. Using memories to protect memories.
Indeed, and the business side is equally fascinating. Companies are racing to capture the brain health market. Suntory Wellness, one of Japan's largest health supplement companies, runs an initiative called No Nemo, which roughly means good for the brain too. Their researcher developed a unique approach called EBH, evidence-based homaru, which means evidence-based praise.
Praising people for brain health?
Yes. Instead of telling seniors to change their habits, which triggers defensiveness, they find scientific evidence that what people already do is good for their brain. You brush your teeth every day? Each healthy tooth you keep is associated with slowing brain shrinkage by about 1 year's worth. Suddenly, the person feels proud and does it even more carefully.
That's such a Japanese approach. Gentle, respectful, building on what already exists.
Meanwhile, Morinaga milk industry shifted their entire e-commerce strategy from digestive health to memory support supplements. Their product uses a special bifidobacterium strain called MCC1274, with evidence that it reaches the gut and works on the brain. It's become their top seller, not just among seniors, but among people in their 40s and 50s who want to prepare for the future.
So forgetting isn't just a medical issue. It's becoming a whole market.
A rapidly growing one. And speaking of forgetting in everyday life, here's something that surprised me. A 2026 survey of 1,100 Japanese adults found that 36% had lost or forgotten something while out in the past year. But among people in their 20s, that number jumped to 47.3%, nearly half.
Wait, young people forget more than old people?
Counterintuitive, isn't it? The most commonly lost item was umbrellas, at 31%. But for 20-somethings specifically, smartphones, earbuds, and chargers topped the list. Digital devices. Meanwhile, people in their 50s and 60s mostly lost handkerchiefs and masks.
So we're so attached to our devices that we keep dropping them everywhere.
And here's the generational split that fascinates me most. When older people realize they've lost something, they actively search and ask at lost and found offices. But about 30% of people in their 20s and 30s simply give up. They don't even try to recover the item.
That's so different from the stereotype of forgetful elderly people.
Isn't it? Perhaps in a world of cheap, replaceable gadgets, losing something feels less catastrophic. But it also reveals something about attention, the currency of the modern age.
Professor, sitting in this silent room, talking about forgetting, I feel like I want to remember this moment.
Then here's my prescription, Sakura. Keep using your brain. Read, solve puzzles, learn new things. Get your hearing checked. Eat your wasabi. And once in a while, sit in a quiet place and let your memories breathe.
I think that's the most Japanese health advice I've ever heard.
The best medicine often comes from the simplest things. And the best memories? They're the ones you choose to hold on to. You've been listening to Narrative Japan.
Until next time, stay curious and keep listening for the whispers beneath Japan's economy.